Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could travel back in time and visit the world's fairs that were hosted in the United States?
That would be awesome. What kind of stuff did they have there?
They had industrial and technological advancements,
Cool.
cultural exchange and social progress,
That sounds cool.
racism, bigotry, and sexism.
That doesn't sound cool at all.
That's right. Today we're exploring the world's fairs, but only those hosted in the United States of America.
Podcast 10 What the Fuck?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podcast 10 What the Fuck. I, as always, am your host, BoneDragon. Joining me today is my busy little librarian beaver. Wait,
Beaver.
Miss Pixie Dusted.
My chair is slowly sinking. Let me fix that.
Yeah, why don't you fix that real quick? Oh, that's the wrong way. Wrong direction. There you go. Okay.
All right, so today we're talking about the world's fairs, specifically the ones that were held in the United States of America. The World's Fair is an international exposition that lasts for 3 to 6 months. Some can go on for more than a year. And it's an international exposition to showcase achievements of nations. Now, the early World's Fairs, through about the mid-1930s, focused mainly on industry and technology, and then past that, they focused on cultural exchange and social progress.
Okay.
But they all had that racism and sexism and bigotry, especially the ones in the beginning. They were blatant.
So, just out of curiosity, why are we going into the one specifically for U.S.?
Because there are way too many, so I figured we'd just focus on America.
Oh, so the ones that we know.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you.
I would say that, most of our listeners are probably American, and if they're not, people love to make fun of America, so let's give the audience what they want.
Well, sure.
So the first World's Fair hosted by the United States of America was in 1876 in Philadelphia, and it was called the Centennial Expo.
Is this the World's Fair where they invented the Philly cheesesteak?
I don't have that in my notes, so probably not.
I'm going to imagine yes.
Okay.
I kind of threw you off there, didn't I?
I'm trying to come up with an Earl of Sandwich joke, but it's not happening. Okay, so this one celebrated the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Things that were invented at this one, as far as food goes, interesting inventions, were popcorn,
Okay.
ketchup, and root beer.
Root beer.
Yes. No longer drinking sarsaparillas. We're moving on to root beer.
Moving on to root beer.
Yeah. And some of the technological advances were typewriter, sewing machine, and telephone.
So things that were associated with, women. At the time.
No.
Come on.
No.
Come on.
Are you
Come on,
trying
feed
to,
into the joke.
Are you trying to
Feed into
segue
it.
for me here?
Feed into it.
Because what we are going to talk about, we're going to
Yes.
focus on
Yes.
for
Say it.
this World's Fair,
Say it.
which was, by the way, a financial failure.
Oof.
Yeah. They had over 200 buildings, and 5 were great buildings. The great buildings were the bigger ones that housed the big expositions.
Like the big warehouses and whatnot.
Yes. So, the interesting thing about this one was now remember, this is 1876,
It's
okay?
only 100 years that America has been enacted.
Right.
That the U.S., I'm sorry, not America, but U.S.
The United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, there basically are no women's rights at this time.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. Okay, so a group of women have decided that they want to have what's called the Women's Pavilion.
Okay.
The fair won't pay for the Women's Pavilion. And they had to do all the fundraising themselves
Okay.
to have this Women's Pavilion. So it was the first structure at an international exposition to highlight the work of women with exhibits created and operated by women. So the female organizers fundraised the entire thing, and the buildings, with the exception of the overall designer the architect that designed all of the temporary structures for this World's Fair, the rest of it was all built by women.
Women can't build things.
Well, not in,
Come
1876.
on. How are women supposed to, raise the children and make dinner and bend over the bed for whenever I get stiffy?
1876 were still colonial times. So women did a lot more than being fragile like they were in like the early 1900s.
Make me a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. So the goal of this exposition...
I'm joking, people, if you can't tell.
Yeah, he's the one that
Don't
cooks.
get pissy.
He's the one in the kitchen. Don't get this twisted. All right, so...
I mean, I can't argue with that one. It's true. I'm the one that makes dinner.
So the goal of this pavilion was to advance women's social, economic, and legal standing, abolish restrictions discriminating against the female gender, encourage sexual harmony, and gain influence, leverage, and freedom for all women in and outside of the home by increasing a woman's confidence and ability to choose. So, how do you think they did that in this pavilion? What kind of exhibits do you think were in this pavilion?
Well, I mean, those are good goals. I mean, that's something to strive towards. And I would imagine that you would have like displays showing women doing these things and being held on lofty positions for having that, or maybe heroic women who have done those things.
You would be wrong.
Okay.
This pavilion showcased 80 patented inventions, such as a stove,
Okay.
a hand attachment for sewing machines, a dishwasher, a fountain griddle greaser, a heating iron with removable handle, a frame for stretching and drying lace curtains, and a stocking and glove darner.
I'm sorry. It's like, wow. Okay.
The exhibits demonstrated positive achievements in women's influence in domains such as industrial and fine arts through wood carving, furniture making, and ceramics. Fancy articles such as clothing making and weaving, and philanthropy such as, well, it doesn't go into details because, women didn't read.
Oh.
But they tried to imply that women could read.
Oh, okay. So that was the entire goal, was to be like, hey, we're just as, educated as you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they tried. I appreciate that they tried. And I suppose for the time, for it being colonial.
Yeah, I mean, this
was-
is 1876
It was
that we're
about
talking
as
about
good as
here,
you're going to get, but still very sexist.
It is incredibly sexist. I mean, we got to look at it this way. Those are all things that nowadays, if women came up and were like, hey, here's a new iron, here's a new vacuum for your home, and, stuff like that, people would look at them and be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because the whole point of this pavilion was showing that women could contribute domestically. Stay in the home where you belong.
So women can contribute as long as it's taking care of the kids, making dinner, and bending over the bed.
And if they
want to,
want
it's hard.
Yeah, and if they want to sell their goods, that's fine, but it needs to be things like lace making
That
and weaving.
That reminds me of like, what show were we watching where the guy was like, "Oh, it's so cute that you're getting a part-time job," and
Right.
yeah. So that sort of mentality.
So we move on to the next World's Fair
Okay.
that was hosted in the United States. This was the 1893 World's Fair.
1893.
It was the World's Fair Columbian Expo. Now, when you say World's Fair, there are two World's Fairs that usually pop into everybody's mind that they know of. The one in New York, where Walt Disney was,
Yes.
which we'll talk about much later.
Yes.
And this one, the 1893 World's Fair that was in Chicago, because this was the one that H.H. Holmes lured people to his hotel to murder them. This is it. This is that World's Fair. So we're not going to talk much about H.H. Holmes because most people already know of him and know of what happened. If you don't, Google it.
I might do an episode on
Possibly.
History 101 What the Fuck.
But it's been
some other time, but not right now.
It's been discussed to death.
Right.
So, this World's Fair celebrated the 400th anniversary of Columbus's arrival in 1492.
Because that's such a great thing to celebrate.
Well, also, Columbus never got off the ship. He never stepped foot on this continent.
He also didn't step foot
He just
anywhere
pointed
near
at it,
Chicago.
said India, and went back to Spain. But beyond that, okay, so this also was Chicago's chance to showcase that they've rebuilt from the Great Fire of 1871 and can host things.
Which apparently, if you believe the BBC, that fire was started by Doctor Who.
Doctor Who started that fire.
I totally believe
the
it.
Fire of London.
I totally believe it.
The Doctor did a lot of things.
Doctor's apparently a pyromaniac.
I'm okay with that. I like fire. So anyway, this one was bigger. There were 14 great buildings this time and 200 other buildings. It was financed by the 1%. There was a banker named Lyman Gage, and there were multiple places that had a bid in to host this World's Fair. New York, Chicago, California, I think was one of them. And the fair board was going to give it to whoever threw the most money at them to finance this thing.
So typical.
And it was Lyman Gage.
Yeah, go figure.
If he were alive today, he'd probably be building a penis-shaped spaceship and blasting off into the atmosphere.
Making fun of Jeff Bezos for it. Yes, you may have a penis-shaped rocket, but mine is bigger.
Yes. So, other than H.H. Holmes luring people that were coming to the World's Fair to his murder hotel, the other big thing that happened at this World's Fair was Mayor Carter Harrison Sr. was assassinated 2 days before the fair closed. So there were no closing ceremonies. They held a huge memorial service for him instead.
That turned a complete 180.
Yes. And then the this was where the Ferris wheel was invented. And it came about because this was right on the heels of the World's Fair in Paris, where Eiffel had just built his tower for that exposition. So they were like, we got to go bigger, we got to go better, America.
Of course.
So Ferris wheel.
So pretty much the same thing as, the whole space race bullshit, except they're just like, oh, fuck the French.
Yeah, exactly. So it had some weird, cringy shit going on. Like, this was the first time that the Pledge of Allegiance was performed, and it was performed by a mass of school children. So that's where we get our Hitler Youth-esque pledge that said every morning before school starts.
I can't Here's what I want to know. How the hell did that come about? Not like, the actual Pledge of Allegiance. I know where that came from. But how did it become a national thing where every school child now has to stand up? This is the one thing that I think, is it the Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses? I think it's Jehovah's Witnesses.
It's Jehovah's
The one
Witnesses.
thing that they might have a good idea on is
not doing this. Yeah.
Doing this.
It came from this World's Fair. This idea of having these patriotic children saying this pledge morphed into saying it every morning before school.
Okay.
It was a thing that was repeated.
Now, I mean, people might be calling into question. They're like, "Oh, you don't like the Pledge of Allegiance." I don't care about the Pledge of Allegiance.
It just seems
fine.
very...
It just seems very indoctrinating.
And very culty.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're forced to be patriotic. And that goes against everything that patriotism stands for. And what about the indigenous people?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean...
And if you're calling my patriotism into question now, motherfucker, let me tell you, I took a bullet to the face for your freedom. So, fuck you.
So, some good things that came out of this World's Fair. Inventions included, or new products, I should say, cream of wheat, brownies, juicy fruit gum, Quaker oats, shredded wheat, PBR.
PBR? Really?
Pabst Blue Ribbon came from this World's Fair.
So if I were to go back to the past and keep PBR from happening, the world would be a better place.
Yes. So black people weren't represented at the 1893 World's Fair. Specifically, they refused to include an African American exhibit. So civil rights leaders protested against this refusal, and they even released a pamphlet entitled "The Reason Why the Colored American is Not in the World's Columbian Exposition, the Afro-American's Contribution to Columbian Literature."
Okay.
And this addressed that issue.
I would love to hear the reasoning for this.
Well, it's 1893 in the United States of America. Of course, there's not going to be inclusion.
Well, I know that, but, you know, I'm just wondering how, like, out there in the open, they're like, yeah, we're racist fuckholes.
Very. So they decided, you know, to kind of appease the civil rights leaders, that they would include a number of exhibits put on by black individuals and approved by the white organizers of the fair. And those included a painting exhibit by the scientist George Washington Carver. They hired a black woman named Nancy Green to play Aunt Jemima for the R.T. Davis Milling Company and show people how to make pancakes with the pancake mix.
Okay. So that's interesting, considering that, you know, they thought that being progressive was, hey, we know you want to have your own area for displays and whatnot, but
They were allowed to have a couple exhibits, but it had to be approved by white people.
Oh, okay.
So they were basically censored.
Oh, fun. So once again, it's one of those...
They couldn't showcase the real atrocities, you know, in this country.
Couldn't show the real shit that was going on, but
exactly.
Hey, shuck and jive.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fun.
Yeah. Because that's acceptable. And anyway, so to end this World's Fair on a good note, we have the Vienna Sausage Company that sold frankfurters and sausages near the Midway, which this is the first occurrence at a World Fair for an area of amusements that they named Midway.
To sell cat food?
No, it was where the rides were.
You said Vienna sausages.
They weren't selling what you think of as Vienna sausages
cat
now
food
in the little cans. That's not what they were selling.
Oh.
They were selling actual sausages and frankfurters, and the company became Vienna Beer, and now they sell Chicago hot dogs. So anytime you're in Chicago and you order a Chicago dog, it's a Vienna dog.
Oh.
And it has to be a Vienna dog for it to be a Chicago dog.
Then why did okay, well, anyway.
But, you know, so there we go. We got Vienna dogs. So that was a good thing
Cat food.
for 1893. Not the Vienna sausages.
Vienna sausages are cat food.
I'm not talking about the ones in the can. The next World's Fair is 1898. It is the Trans-Mississippi Expo in Omaha.
Omaha. I thought it said Ohana there for a second.
This one...
I take it this
Give
one
me
hurts.
a second. Yeah.
This one hurts.
This one was less about being racist and discriminatory against black people and all about being racist and discriminatory against indigenous or Native Americans, whatever you'd like to call them.
Gotcha. Your people.
Yes. So, this one showcased the development of the entire West, stretching from the Mississippi River to the Pacific coast. So we're celebrating colonizing the entire country. And to celebrate colonizing the entire country, we're going to showcase the indigenous people that we've tried to get rid of through genocide.
Manifest destiny. Woo!
Pretty much.
Basically, it's a human zoo.
They had what they called the Indian Congress. And there was a letter that was sent out to the various tribes. And in the letter, it stated, "It is the purpose of the promoters of the proposed encampment or Congress to make an extensive exhibit illustrative of the mode of life, native industries, and ethnic traits of as many of the Aboriginal American tribes as possible. To that end, it is proposed to bring together selected families or groups from all the principal tribes and camp them in teepees, wigwams, hogans, etc. on the exposition grounds and permit them to conduct their domestic affairs as they do at home and make and sell their wares for their own profit."
Now,
That
this
doesn't
sounds, it doesn't sound too
Doesn't sound bad,
It sounds
right?
like, hey, we'd like for you to educate us
Yes.
on how you live. But as we all know, when white people are involved, it turns into a shit show.
Yes. So here's what actually happened. Okay?
Oh, God.
At a world fair that is celebrating the colonization of this country.
Okay, honey. Honey, I love you. Keep calm.
This is what actually happened. It was the largest gathering of Native American tribes of its kind to that date. Over 500 members of 35 different tribes came.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried. They tried to set up the villages like a living zoo.
Okay.
And that's not what the fair goers wanted to see. The fair goers wanted to see reenactments of battles.
Oh.
The fair goers wanted to see the ghost dance.
The what?
Okay, for those of you who don't know what the ghost dance was, the ghost dance was a dance to reunite the living with spirits of the dead, bring the spirits to fight on their behalf, and to end American westward expansion, bring peace and prosperity and unity to the native peoples throughout the region. The most notable ghost dance that is talked about in history is when people were performing the ghost dance at Wounded Knee and were attacked and slaughtered in the middle of the dance.
Oh, Jesus.
So the promoters of the World's Fair thought it'd be a good idea to erect a 5,000-seat grandstand and have the tribes reenact battles and do the ghost dance for people to come and watch.
They thought that it'd be a good idea to put these people on display for people to basically laugh at.
Yes.
For their failures to defend themselves against westward expansion.
Yes.
Great!
While celebrating westward expansion.
What an awesome show.
Yeah. And just absolutely belittling their sacred practices and their spiritualism.
Wow.
Because, they weren't Christian, so what they believed wasn't right.
Oh, of course, because, if you're not Christian, then, everything that you do is wrong and you're a heathen and you don't deserve to live. At least that's what most conservatives believe.
So we'll leave that shit show behind and move on to the 1904 World's Fair.
I think that's probably best,
Yes.
considering that you're ready to, murder people over that one.
So, moving on to the 1904 World's Fair, the one that ran concurrently with the 1904 Olympics.
Yay!
Which, if you haven't listened to that episode of
History 101, what the fuck?
Yeah, then you need to go do that.
Pause this video, go watch that, then come back.
Because it also was a shit show.
Big time.
This one is in St. Louis, and it is celebrating the centennial of the Louisiana Purchase that was in 1803. If you don't know what the Louisiana Purchase is, apparently you haven't gone to elementary school.
Oh, can I go into this one? Can I do this one?
Well,
I've been wanting to explain this.
Okay. You explain.
I didn't get to do it on the episode because it wasn't pertinent to the issue.
You explain what why this is not a good celebration.
No. So, basically, here's what the deal was. Before the Louisiana Purchase, America, the U.S., was split up into two sections, okay, with a huge strip of land that was owned by the French. Now, the French were basically allowing Native Americans to come onto that land and have basically sanctuary from manifest destiny. So if you needed to get away from the white people, the French were allowing Native Americans to come onto this land and to live their lives the way that they wanted and be free to do that. The U.S. basically went to France and said, hey, we're going to pay you a god-awful lot of money, which really wasn't much money when you think about it, for all of this land. And France basically said, yeah, okay. What they were actually doing was paying for the ability to go onto this land and manifest destiny the fuck out of all these Native Americans. This is where you get the Trail of Tears.
Genocide.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
It's genocide.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Which brings me to my first cringe topic for this World's Fair.
Oh, yay.
The official letterhead art is a Native American, and it says commemorating the Louisiana Purchase, 1803.
If they wanted to be historically accurate with that, it would show a bullet piercing this Native American skull and flying out the other end.
It would show multiple dead indigenous families under their cute little commemorating the Louisiana Purchase
That's men,
title.
women, children,
Yes.
babies
Yes.
that were slaughtered
Well, that's what genocide is.
because, white Americans felt the need to show that they had the bigger dick.
So, some interesting things that were presented at this World's Fair,
Okay.
as far as inventions go.
Tell me something good.
The radio phone, which went on to become a radio, as well as the precursor to cordless phones.
Oh, okay.
A teleautograph, which was basically a fax machine.
Really?
Yes. The X-ray machine,
Okay.
the electric streetcar,
Okay.
and automobiles for personal use.
What?
Yes.
Because at the time, automobiles were mostly used by companies for like transporting goods back and forth and whatnot. It wasn't really used for like, hey, I want to run down to the store real quick. You know, it wasn't anything like that. It was just, yeah.
Well, it was because at the time people didn't trust them yet.
Yeah.
It was a very new invention. Automobiles weren't trusted. They were seen as dangerous.
Right.
So one interesting thing that happened during this World's Fair was the bullfight riot.
This is interesting because I thought that I had completely researched the 1904 Olympics and I missed this part. What is the bullfight riot?
The bullfight riot occurred on June 5th, 1904. A bullfight was scheduled for an arena that was just north of the fairgrounds in conjunction with the fair and the Olympics. And it turned violent when the Missouri governor of the time ordered police to halt the fight because Missouri had anti-bullfighting laws.
Well, yeah.
Spectators demanded refunds. They were turned away. And then the stone throwing began into the windows of the arena office. Police protected the office. So while they were protecting the office, the mob burned down the arena.
Oh, great. All because you couldn't watch a helpless animal get killed.
Yes.
Fun. I love white society.
And then, of course, once again, at this World's Fair, we're being just absolutely insensitive to indigenous people, not only in this country, in the United States of America, but in other countries.
Oh, fun.
They built an arena to do reenactments of the Anglo-Boer War. Do you know what the Anglo-Boer War is?
What is the Anglo-Boer War? I'm kind of curious about this.
That was battles against the South African native villages by the British Army.
Oh, so that's why we never learned about it in school.
Right.
Because it was a British
history.
Okay.
So, once again, just, we like to see the white people beating up the natives.
For those of you, because you can't see us at home, I'm currently doing the what the fuck head motion because I fail to see how that has anything to do with American World's Fair.
It's an international exposition. Other countries were here. So,
well, that makes sense.
The whole Native American battles and ghost dance thing was so popular at the last American hosted World's Fair, they decided they wanted to do more battles. So it was I think the Zulu and the Tutsi tribe.
Yeah.
I think is who they were. And that was another genocide.
So what you're saying is America doesn't hold a trademark over racism.
So let's move on to 1915.
1915.
This one was the most difficult one to research. There wasn't a lot of information about this one at all. This is like the World's Fair that time forgot.
That's kind of curious.
Yeah, it was the Panama Pacific International Expo, and it was held in San Francisco. It was to celebrate the completion of the Panama Canal.
Okay.
And also showcase the recovery from the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco.
Oh. Now, just a moment. I can't think of any negative aspects of the Panama Canal. If you can think of any negative aspects of the Panama Canal that we should know about, be sure to put a comment.
So, this one, some of the notable things that I did find, this World's Fair hosted the 1915 American Grand Prix and Vanderbilt Cup auto races,
okay,
which was a first for World's Fairs. And apparently they continued to celebrate the conquering, colonizing, and genocide of the native people, pushing that narrative that soon natives would be extinct. They were saying at this World's Fair in the living villages, come see these
people before they're genocided.
Yes, come see these Native Americans before they are extinct.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is hardcore. Oh my God.
1915. For those of us that were born in the 1900s, you know, the generations that were born before the year 2000, 1915 wasn't that long ago.
Not that far off.
And see, that's what people are, you know, people don't understand that about, you know, discrimination against black people too. It's not that long ago that
it's really
we had
not.
segregation.
I mean,
you know, so I mean, genocide and segregation are not ancient history type things. They should be, but they're not. I mean, you know, and that's like baffling to think about, that it wasn't that long ago.
Right.
That these horrible things were still happening.
Wow.
So, moving right along, we're moving on to the 1933-1934 World's Fair.
Wait, what?
It started in May of 1933 and ran to November of 1934.
All right, I'm game. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on.
Long fair. We're getting a little less cringy, but not much.
Okay.
We're starting to level off a little bit in the cringe factor of all the bad things that are happening at these world fairs. So this one was once again held in Chicago, and the theme was technological innovation. So this one was to showcase that America could build a utopia on the heels of the Great Depression through democracy and manufacturing. It featured offensive portrayals of African Americans. It also had a, this is in air quotes because these are their words, not mine, a midget city. And it showcased incubators to show how they worked, which contained real live babies.
Oh my God.
So the midget city was pretty much a Lilliputian village, is what they were calling it. Midget City.
Lilliputian
Midget
village.
City was a Lilliputian village. Because, you know, Wizard of Oz
Right.
was a big popular thing.
The book.
The book, yes. And so they had a living exhibit of little people.
Wow.
Yes.
Another human zoo.
Yes. So, you know, it's getting a little better, but not a lot.
Now, before we go further, I want to explain to people why I have a thing against human zoos. First of all, if you don't understand this concept, please go educate yourself. But mostly, everybody has this idea that you're going to put on display this different way of life and this different way of living. But instead, what you're going to get are people that are showing up to laugh at other people.
It basically just turns into cultural appropriation.
That, and it's also an excuse for,
It's a mockery.
The trolls of society to be an asshole to other people.
But, so it seems like the universe felt as though World's Fairs needed some karma.
Okay.
So from June to November of 1933, and this is why the fair ran extra long, because they had to close for a little while and then reopen for a little while.
Okay.
There was a amoebic dysentery outbreak.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. And more than 1,000 cases, 98 deaths. And it was finally, they figured out that it was defective plumbing in 2 of the World Fair hotels were allowing sewage to contaminate the drinking water.
That's fake news. It's
Sure.
not real.
Sure.
It's not real.
Sure.
Don't wear the masks. Don't worry about a vaccine.
Sure. This was also the first time where they had the Homes of Tomorrow exhibit. You know, the modern homes that show all the modern conveniences and, you know,
Kind of like in Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where Joker is kind of holding up. You're not going to get this reference, but I'm sure. Oh my God, please tell me I'm not the only one who gets this reference. But Joker basically holds up in an old home of the future that was set up in a World's Fair. And, and they have a fight scene in this. Yeah.
The thing that pops into my head is the Carousel of Progress.
Yeah.
Basically. But they had 12 of these model homes set up where you could like tour them and see modern home conveniences, new building materials and techniques.
Mm-hmm.
But some fun stuff was happening out on the Midway.
When you say fun stuff, do you mean actually fun stuff or creepy, horrible things that people wouldn't actually consider fun?
I mean, dirty.
Oh, damn it.
Dirty. So we didn't really talk about this in the at the 1898 World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that's where the Midway was introduced to Little Egypt, who was a suggestive belly dancer and danced the hoochie coochie.
Is that their words?
Yes. That was the name of the dance.
The hoochie coochie?
That was the legitimate name of the dance.
That was the legitimate name of the dance, was the hoochie coochie.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've heard it so many times in reference to
Once again, Carousel of Progress, where the kid's looking at the little viewfinder and he goes, so that's the hoochie coochie.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
It's pictures of Little Egypt
all right.
doing the hoochie coochie dance. So at this fair on the Midway, the big star was Sally Rand.
Okay.
Who was a burlesque dancer who danced with fans and nothing else. You know, the giant
So
fans.
that's whatever you see, like the Looney Tunes commercials. Commercials.
With Bugs Bunny.
The Looney Tunes cartoons where Bugs Bunny is doing that. Okay,
He's
I got
imitating Sally Rand. And she became famous for dancing with her fans.
So the early times version of OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
She was dancing with OnlyFans.
That's pretty good.
I'm so sorry. That was a terrible joke.
And with that, we've gone through about half of the World's Fairs hosted in America.
Only half.
Only about half. So we covered the industrial and technological advancements section.
Okay.
If you're interested in learning more weird, cringy World's Fair stuff, come back for the next episode where we're going to talk about the cultural exchange and social advancement sections, which are the late 30s on to present day.
Okay. Well, that sounds like it's going to be a totally horrible thing
A hoot and a
to
holler
have to
for sure.
sit through. And
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I can only feel so bad for people that live through this.
Makes you want to apologize for every single one of your
Kind
ancestors.
of does. It kind of really
Yeah.
does. Oh, wait. My ancestors weren't here. That's right. Anyway. Thanks, guys, for listening. I really hope you enjoyed, or at least were educated by the things that we talked about today. And if you enjoyed this, then like and subscribe, do all the cute stuff. And be sure to tune in next time where we're going to be talking about a little bit more of the World's Fair. Also keep in mind, something new in our merch store is we have the Maud Cracknell t-shirt, which is the drawing of Maud Cracknell, and underneath it says, I'm calling the cops.
I'm calling the cops.
So, yeah. Be sure to run by the merch store at tpublic.com/user/Crojan Designs and check that out. It's in the BoneDragon section, which is me. But yeah, thanks guys for listening, and be sure to tune in next time.